Welcome to IQriously. Get comfortable. Take a slow breath. Tonight, we are going to follow a man trying to get home. He has been away for 20 years. 10 of them fighting a war he did not start. 10 of them trying to cross a sea that seems determined to kill him. His name is Odysseus. He is the king of a small island called Ithaca, off the western coast of Greece. He is not the strongest hero of his age, or the fastest, or the most beautiful. He is the cleverest. The Greeks called him Polytropos, the man of many turns, the man who always finds another way. His story is over 2,700 years old. It was composed by a poet named Homer, who may have been blind, who may have lived in the 8th century BC, and whose identity has been debated by scholars ever since. But whoever Homer was, what he made or assembled or preserved, is one of the greatest stories ever told. Tonight, we are going to follow Odysseus all the way home. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be. Just listen. Before Odysseus' story begins, we need a moment with the war. 10 years ago in the story's presenter, Prince of Troy named Paris took something that did not belong to him. Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. Whether Helen went willingly or was taken by force is a question the ancient Greeks argued about and never settled. What is not in dispute is the consequence. Her husband, King Menelaus of Sparta, called on every king and hero in Greece to help him get her back. They came. 1,000 ships, the poets said. An enormous army. And they sailed for Troy. The war lasted 10 years. It ended not with a decisive battle, but with a trick. A giant wooden horse, built and left on the beach as if in offering when the Greek ships appeared to sail away. The Trojans, celebrating what seemed like victory, hauled the horse inside their walls. In the night, Greek soldiers hidden inside the horse climbed out. They opened the gates. The fleet had returned under cover of darkness. Troy burned. The trick was Odysseus's. He was the man who invented the horse. And now, with Troy in ashes and the war finally over, all he wants to do is go home. It will take him 10 more years. The story of the Odyssey does not begin at the beginning. Homer places us in the middle, 10 years after the fall of Troy. 20 years after Odysseus left Ithaca. We begin not with Odysseus, but with his son. Telemachus is now about 20 years old. He was an infant when his father left. He has grown up without him. And for the past several years, his home has been invaded. Over 100 young noblemen from Ithaca and the surrounding islands have taken up residence in the palace. They are suitors' men who believe Odysseus is dead and who want to marry his wife Penelope and claim his kingdom. They eat his food, drink his wine, and quarrel among themselves. Penelope has resisted them with remarkable ingenuity. For 3 years, she told the suitors she would choose one of them as soon as she finished weaving a burial shroud for Odysseus's elderly father. Every day she wove. Every night she unraveled. Eventually one of her own maids betrayed the trick. Now, there are no more excuses. The suitors are pressing harder. And Telemachus young, uncertain, not yet the man his father was, can only watch. The goddess Athena decides it is time to intervene. She has always favored Odysseus. Clever, resourceful, never giving up, he is the kind of mortal she most admires. She visits Telemachus in disguise, urges him to travel to the Greek mainland and ask the other kings what they know of his father. Telemachus sets out, and far away, on a small island in the middle of the sea, Odysseus is trapped. The island is called Ogygia. It is the home of a nymph a minor divine being named Calypso. Calypso means she who conceals. And she has concealed Odysseus for 7 years. She loves him. She has kept him with her on her island, promising him immortality if he will stay. He refuses. Every day he sits on the shore, staring out to sea, weeping for home. He is offered the gift that every mortal is supposed to want most: freedom from death, from age, from the limitations of being human. And he says no. He wants his wife. He wants his son. He wants his home. He wants to be a mortal man, living a mortal life, in the place where he belongs. The gods eventually order Calypso to release him. Hermes, the messenger of the gods, is sent to tell her. She is angry, but she obeys. She gives Odysseus tools and materials to build a raft. She gives him provisions for the journey. And with something between reluctance and heartbreak, she lets him go. Odysseus builds his raft and sails east. After 17 days, he can see land. And then Poseidon arrives. Poseidon, god of the sea, has hated Odysseus since the earliest days of his wanderings. Odysseus blinded Poseidon's son, the Cyclops Polyphemus, and Poseidon has never forgotten or forgiven. Now, returning from a journey to the edge of the world, he spots the tiny raft and its single occupant, and reaches for the sea. He raises a storm. The waves tower over the raft. They smash it. Odysseus is thrown into the ocean. He swims. For 2 days and 2 nights he swims, barely keeping his head above water, driven by the goddess Athena's subtle guidance towards the shore of a land called Scheria. He crawls ashore, exhausted beyond anything he has experienced in 20 years of war and wandering. He collapses under a pile of leaves and sleeps. Scheria is the land of the Phaeacians, a seafaring people who live at the edge of the known world, blessed by the gods, and famous for their ships that can find any destination by instinct alone. Odysseus is found in the morning by the king's daughter, Nausicaa, who has come to the beach to do laundry directed there by Athena in a dream. He emerges from the leaves, salt-encrusted, exhausted, naked, except for a branch held strategically, and addresses her with the most charming and carefully calibrated speech in all of ancient literature. He does not know if she is a goddess or a mortal, he says. If mortal, her parents must be extraordinarily fortunate to have produced something so remarkable. Nausicaa, who is also sensibly attended by a group of attendants, is charmed but practical. She has him bathed and clothed and fed. And she takes him to her father's palace. King Alcinous and Queen Arete receive him with the traditional Greek hospitality: food, wine, a bath, a bed, before even asking who he is or where he comes from. This is Xenia, the sacred obligation of hospitality to strangers. The Greeks took it extremely seriously. A stranger might be a god in disguise. Even if not, treating guests well was a fundamental moral obligation. After food and drink, when Odysseus has been restored to something like his normal self, the king asks his name, and Odysseus tells his story. The account that Odysseus gives of his wanderings is one of the most extraordinary sequences in ancient literature. Adventure after adventure, monster after monster, temptation after temptation. Let us follow him through the most famous of them. After leaving Troy, Odysseus and his fleet of 12 ships were blown off course and landed on the coast of the Cicones, a people allied with Troy. His men sacked their town. Against Odysseus's advice, they stayed too long celebrating. The Cicones called for reinforcements. The Greeks fled to their ships with heavy losses. First lesson of the Odyssey. When the captain says it is time to leave, leave. Next came the land of the Lotus Eaters, peaceful people who offered Odysseus' scouts a food made from lotus flowers. Those who ate it forgot everything: their homes, their families, their desire to return. They only wanted to stay and eat more lotus and feel nothing. Odysseus had to drag his scouts back to the ships by force, weeping. He understood the danger immediately. Not violence, not monsters, just the seductive peace of forgetting. The Odyssey is full of this kind of temptation, the invitation to stop struggling, stop remembering, stop trying to get home. Every time, Odysseus refuses. The encounter with the Cyclops Polyphemus is perhaps the most famous episode in the Odyssey. Odysseus and 12 of his men land on a large island and find an enormous cave full of food, sheep's milk, cheeses, lambs. Ignoring his men's advice to take the food and go, Odysseus waits to meet the cave's owner. The owner is a Cyclops, a single-eyed giant, son of Poseidon. His name is Polyphemus. He is not pleased to find visitors. He seals the cave with an enormous boulder. He eats 2 of the Greeks for dinner, 2 more for breakfast. Trapped with a monster in a sealed cave, Odysseus does what Odysseus always does. He thinks. He finds a large wooden stake in the cave, sharpens it, and hides it. He finds the Cyclops' store of wine and offers him some. Polyphemus, who has never tasted wine, drinks enthusiastically. He asks Odysseus his name. "Autis," says Odysseus. Nobody. When Polyphemus, drunk, falls asleep, Odysseus and his men heat the stake in the fire and drive it into the Cyclops' single eye. The Cyclops screams. The neighboring Cyclopes come to the cave entrance and ask what is wrong. "Who is hurting you?" "Nobody," shouts Polyphemus. "Nobody is hurting me." The neighbors, puzzled, go back to bed. In the morning, Polyphemus rolls back the boulder to let his sheep out and feels across the entrance to catch any Greeks trying to escape. Odysseus ties his men under the bellies of the sheep. They slip out between the monsters' searching hands. Once clear, Odysseus cannot resist one final moment of bravado. He shouts his real name across the water. "I did this, Odysseus of Ithaca, son of Laertes. Remember me." Polyphemus calls on his father Poseidon to curse Odysseus, to delay his homecoming, to make it long, hard, and costly. Poseidon hears his son, and Odysseus sails on, with a vengeful god watching every wave. From the Cyclops' island, Odysseus visited the island of the wind god Aeolus, who gave him a bag containing all the unfavorable winds, ensuring a safe journey home on the favorable ones. His men, convinced the bag contained treasure that Odysseus was hoarding, opened it while he slept. All the winds escaped. The ships were blown back to Aeolus' island. Aeolus, concluding that any man whose crew was this stupid must be cursed by the gods, refused to help again. More lessons. Trust is everything, and keep the important bags out of reach of curious hands. After a disastrous encounter with the cannibal Laestrygonians, who sank 11 of the 12 ships, Odysseus reached the island of Ae. The island was home to Circe, a goddess with considerable magical abilities. She turned the scouting party of Odysseus's men into pigs. Odysseus went to rescue them, protected by a herb the god Hermes gave him. He threatened Circe with his sword. She was impressed. She turned the pigs back into men. She became Odysseus's lover. He and his men stayed on her island for a year. Eventually, Odysseus remembered that he had somewhere to be. Circe, who genuinely cared for him, gave him detailed navigation advice and the most important piece of information she had. He needed to visit the Underworld. He needed to consult the spirit of the dead prophet Tiresias. Only Tiresias could tell him how to get home. The descent into the Underworld is one of the most haunting passages in all of ancient literature. Odysseus sailed to the edge of the world. He performed the ritual sacrifices. And the dead came, crowds of them, pressing towards the blood of the sacrificed animals, which the dead could drink to speak. He held them back with his sword until Tiresias arrived. Tiresias told him of the dangers ahead, warned him not to harm the sacred cattle of the sun god Helios on the island of Thrinacia, told him that even if he reached home, his troubles would not be over, but told him, crucially, that he would reach home. After Tiresias, other shades pressed forward. His mother, who had died of grief while he was wandering. He did not know she was dead. He tried to embrace her. His arms passed through her like air. 3 times he reached for her. 3 times she dissolved. The dead cannot be held. He spoke with the shades of great heroes. Achilles, the greatest warrior of the Trojan War, told him that he would rather be a poor farmer on earth, alive, than a king among the dead. All the glorious death, all the immortal fame worth nothing against a single day of life. Odysseus understood. He had been offered immortality by Calypso. He had said no. Now Achilles was confirming from the place where the dead go that he had made the right choice. From the underworld, Odysseus returned to Circe, received her final advice, and sailed on, past the Sirens, those beautiful creatures who sat on their island and sang. Their song contained perfect knowledge, all the things that had happened, all the things that were happening, all the things that would happen. It was irresistible. Every ship that passed was drawn to them. Every crew that heard them leaped into the sea and drowned, trying to reach the source of the music. Odysseus wanted to hear the song. He told his crew to plug their ears with wax so they could not hear. He told them to tie him to the mast, and then he listened. The song was extraordinary. He screamed at his men to release him. He struggled against the ropes. They tightened them and rowed harder. And he heard the most beautiful music in the world and survived it because he had arranged in advance to be unable to act on what he felt. There is wisdom in that. Sometimes the wisest decision you can make is to restrain your future self before the temptation arrives. Between Scylla and Charybdis. The phrase has entered the language as a metaphor for being caught between 2 terrible choices. Scylla was a monster with 6 heads living in a cliff face above a narrow strait. Each head could snatch a sailor. Charybdis was a whirlpool on the other side of the same strait, a vast sucking vortex that swallowed ships whole. Circe's advice had been direct. Hug the Scylla side of the strait and keep rowing. You will lose 6 men, 1 to each head. If you try to steer clear of Scylla, you risk Charybdis. Charybdis can take the whole ship. A terrible choice, but not a choice between good and bad. The choice between bad and catastrophic. Odysseus made the calculation. He drove the ship through the strait. He watched 6 of his men lifted into the air by the monster's heads, screaming his name. And he could not stop. He could not go back. He had to keep the ship moving. The Odyssey does not spare Odysseus the cost of his decisions. He gets home, but it is not free. After the strait, one final catastrophe. The island of Thrinacia, the sacred cattle of Helios. Odysseus's surviving men were starving, stranded by unfavorable winds. Odysseus had made them swear not to touch the cattle. While he slept, they killed some. A few days' worth of food. Survival. That was all. Helios complained to the gods. Zeus sent a storm when they next sailed. Lightning struck the ship. All of the crew were killed, every last one. Odysseus alone survived, clinging to wreckage. He washed ashore on Ogygia, on Calypso's island. 7 years. And that was where we began. Now he is home. Or rather, now the Phaeacians have carried him home. He arrives on Ithaca, asleep, covered with gifts. The Phaeacians leave him on the beach and sail away before he wakes. Athena disguises him as an old beggar. He makes his way to the farm of his old swineherd, Eumaeus. He waits. He gathers information. He is patient. 20 years of waiting has taught him something about patience. He reveals himself to his son, Telemachus. Their reunion is one of the most moving moments in the poem. Father and son, meeting for the first time since Telemachus was an infant, watching each other with wonder and grief and gratitude. The suitors are holding a competition. Penelope has announced she will marry whichever man can string Odysseus's great bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads lined up in a row. One by one, the suitors try. None can even string the bow. It requires extraordinary strength to bend it enough to attach the string. The beggar in the corner, the disguised Odysseus, asks if he might try. The suitors laugh. He picks up the bow. He strings it. He shoots through all 12 axe heads. And then he turns and shoots the leading suitor through the throat. The battle in the hall is short and brutal. Odysseus and Telemachus and 2 loyal servants against over 100 armed men. It should be impossible. Athena tips the balance. When it is over, Odysseus has his haul back. He has his home back. He bathes and dresses and goes to find Penelope. She is cautious. She has been deceived before. She tests him. She tells a servant to move their marriage bed out from their bedroom. Odysseus, furious, explains why that is impossible. The bed was built around a living olive tree still rooted in the ground. He knows because he built it himself. Only he could know that. Penelope weeps. She goes to him. 20 years. He is home. The Odyssey ends, roughly, there. With the reunion. With the home reclaimed. But Homer gives us one more thing. A prophecy from the dead seer Tiresias, which Odysseus tells Penelope about in their reunion night. He must travel one more time. He must walk inland carrying an oar until he reaches a people who have never seen the sea and do not know what an oar is. They will think it is a winnowing fan. When he reaches that place, he must plant the oar in the ground and make sacrifice to Poseidon. Only then will the sea god's grudge be satisfied. Only then will Odysseus be truly free. Even homecoming is not the end of the road. Even the hero who has been 20 years getting home must get up and walk on one more time. But this time, the journey is his choice. Not a curse. Not a punishment. An obligation to be fulfilled, knowingly and willingly. And then, finally, a death in old age, peaceful, surrounded by a prosperous people. The sea will have been made peace with. The wandering will be over. The Odyssey has survived for nearly 3,000 years. It has been translated into hundreds of languages. It has inspired novels, films, operas, poems, and every kind of artistic response imaginable. Why? Because it is about something universal. The desire to go home. The knowledge that the road between where you are and where you belong is long and uncertain and full of things that want to stop you. And the stubborn, patient, sometimes foolish, always essential refusal to stop trying. Odysseus is not a perfect hero. He is vain that moment of shouting his name at the Cyclops costs him 10 years. He is unfaithful, Circe, Calypso, others. He is capable of terrible decisions. He watches his men die, again and again, as a consequence of his choices and sometimes his failures. He is not heroic in the clean, simple way of a champion who never doubts. He is heroic in the complicated, exhausted human way of someone who keeps going anyway. Who, despite everything, still wants to get home. Who still believes that home is worth getting to. That is why, 3,000 years later, his story is still being told. That is why, tonight, it is the story that seemed right to carry you into sleep. Thank you for spending this time with IQriously. Rest well. You are already home.